Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm so excited about today's show. Today, we're going to learn about turning loss into legacy from a modern day MacGyver. Oh, buckle up. It's going to be a good one. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris. I'm the co-host and creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants. My12journeys.com. It's our coaching platform, 12 Journeys Coaching. And I'm here with Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. You can get that on Amazon. Look at that bad boy.
Like, I go like this, but it doesn't mean call me.
Call him. It'd be funny, actually. Right? Oh my gosh.
George, phone right now.
Yeah.
Hey, is that you calling?
Nick. Hey. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about today's show. I didn't sleep hardly I slept a couple of winks. 4 winks. Is that 4 hours?
I don't know what that is. 4 winks might be.
A wink. Good morning.
I gotta look it up.
Oh my gosh. All right, here we go. If you haven't been to my12journeys.com, head on over there, check it out, because it's a fantastic place. It is a framework. We have a ton of stuff for coaches, corporations, leaders. What else, Nick? Is that it?
No, yeah, it covers quite a bit right there.
Like 2 people.
Yeah,
not even a little bit.
No, coaches, consultants, organizations. It's a framework that turns your clients and your teams into giants. And so that's our goal, is to turn your clients into giants. And so we've created a proven system based on the giants and the smalls that really helps people from a holistic point of view. So it covers everything from your inner world to your outer world and your legacy and beyond. And so a lot of coaches out there right now don't have a framework. They just love serving people, but they don't have a proven system that they're using. So they're just using their love of listening. And so what we do is we give you a system for operations, for coaching, for building a successful coaching business. And we make it easy so that you can take that out to your clients and really serve them. So, and if you don't want to serve them and you want us to come in and do that for you, we can do that as well. So
we love doing it. So go check it out. My12journeys.com. It's scrolling across the bottom, just in case you forget. Yeah, just in case. Okay, now we get to it.
And if you have really bad eyesight, just be like,
yeah. There it is. That was rude to say to Jordan. But anyway, so now we're going to introduce our amazing guest. I'm so excited for today's show, Nick. I seriously, the instant that I found out that he would do it, today's been like, I don't know, it's because it's St. Patrick's Day. It's like my Christmas. So having Jordon Bell here, it's one of those amazing things. I don't know, for me, it's just a magical moment. I get to see him twice a year anyway, but twice a year is not enough. So here we go.
Well, we'll have him back on next week too then, right?
Yeah, sure. He's a...
Well, let's introduce him. So welcome back to Wake Up with Giants TV. Today we got Jordon Bell. He's a figure whose life has been shaped by nature, resilience, and change. Growing up in Maine, Jordon was drawn to the outdoors from a young age, engaging in activities like beaver trapping and fishing that taught him the basics of survival and a deep appreciation for the wilderness. His quest for adventure led him to Alaska at 19, where he spent nearly a decade facing the extremes of nature, from surviving bone-chilling temperatures to escaping avalanches. Jordon's experiences in Alaska tested his limits and honed his survival skills. So Jordan's journey also includes significant personal loss, which deeply affected him. The loss of his wife and daughter introduced profound changes in his life, influencing his move to Tennessee and the start of a new chapter. So here he founded a successful construction business and focused on raising his son, passing on his love for the outdoors and resilience in the face of adversity. Jordan's participation in the survival show alone was a testament to his enduring adventurous spirit and desire to connect his past experiences with his present, aiming to leave a meaningful legacy. So join us as we dive into his story, exploring the intersections of adventure, personal loss, and the continuous journey toward healing and growth. We're glad to have you here today, Jordan.
Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored to be on here. And it's funny that you say it feels like Christmas, because Ryan always reminds me of Will Ferrell from Elf when he's going off. He's just so giddy and so exciting, and you're
Always.
like, how can you not be excited to hang out with Ryan?
Like,
He
calm
is
that
always
guy
that way.
down.
He's a giant of giants, and I really appreciate the time. And man, I just love knowing you guys. You are
thank you, man.
fantastic. You are giants. You are mentors to me and many other people. And you're a testament that we can all learn from each other. I've had different experiences that you've had. And just like you were saying, talking about creating the framework of the 12 journeys, we all have things that we can share, but a lot of times it's hard to know how to share it in a constructive way.
Yeah.
And learning that when you do share and when you do teach other people, you are actually learning yourself and reinforcing that learning. And sometimes even just putting your experiences into words kind of helps you navigate those experiences you've had, kind of helps you do a post-mortem, if you will, of the events that have happened in your life, how it shaped you. So,
yeah, as we do our show, we really try to inspire our viewers to see that what happens in you is available to them. The journey that you went through, the healing, that's all available to any one of us at any time. And you've been through a lot. The show alone is just a portion of it. And really for us, we like to go back to your origin story. The reason we start there is because we all have one. We have some version of ourselves that we think we are. And we tell people that story and we get really good at it. I posted a post the other day that said our greatest addiction isn't alcohol or drugs or sex or anything else. It's our story that we're addicted to. And
we use that as a foundation of how we navigate life. And so when we are forced to create this version of ourselves, this foundation of ourselves from the earliest age, from the time that we're in school and navigating our family, we create this version of ourselves that is necessity. That is our baseline of how we navigate the world. And if you come to the conclusion that that is not truly who you are, well, that's earth shattering. You lose your foundation, you lose your anchorage point, and you are free floating. And that is the most terrifying feeling that a human can experience, is not knowing your foundation, and you're just floating out into space. And that forces you to look at really who you are. And that can be terrifying. That can be impossible for some people at certain times in their lives. So
I'd imagine you had, a version of yourself, and then you had these impactful events, right? So you're going along in life. You think you are something. And, where we're going to try and theme this around loss and legacy, I really want to start with these impactful events in your life. If you're okay sharing this, I'd love to hear about the losses in your life and how that impacted who you thought you were in the world, and how it maybe shifted the direction of your life. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Talking about your wife and your daughter, and
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all lose people throughout our lives. And some are, more difficult to deal with than others, and they impact you in different ways. But you're absolutely right in, it shakes you down to your core when you lose people. The first real loss that I remember as a young child, I was 11 years old, and my Cub Scout pack leader passed away on Christmas Eve, died of a heart attack. And, somebody that we knew and loved and expected to see in a few more days is suddenly gone. And that is, one type of experience when you're a child. That's, even though that person's maybe have only been part of my life for a couple of years. That's pretty impactful. And then, as you lose grandparents and everybody loses family members, you learn how to navigate that and deal with that. But nothing can prepare you for something like suddenly losing your spouse, somebody that you've shared every moment with for 7 years, or, you lose your almost 4-year-old daughter. Those things can make you both your worst and best versions of yourself. And it's up to you to make sure that you are experiencing it in a proper way and not allowing it to continue to make you the worst version of yourself. It is so easy to make you a bitter, angry person. And it is so easy to make you build up walls around yourself to protect yourself from further trauma. It's the hardest thing to do is to remain soft, is to remain open.
Holy cow. Yeah. That right there, I think is maybe a thread we'll go down a little bit here is, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and her research on grief, she discovered, I think it's 5 things, DABDA, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance, right? Susan Anderson in her work on abandonment talks about swirl, which is shattering, withdrawal, internalization, rage, and lifting. And, you get into Andrew Huberman's work. Andrew Huberman talks about the importance of attachment for grief to occur, that we have somebody in our time and space and we're attached to them or bonded to them, and then they're gone, then we experience grief. And so this combination in each of these is that we have this bond that we've created with somebody or something in our life, and then it's shattered, right? In an instant. And what I find interesting between the work of Susan Anderson and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is that both of them talk about anger as one of the emotions that comes up in loss. And I don't think we talk about it enough because, like you said, you could easily turn into a bitter person because you're angry about this thing you weren't expecting. It shouldn't have gone that way, right?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if it's a person or a thing, right? Can you talk about that anger? Like, tell us how that went for you and how that came up and how you navigated that. What tools did you use to navigate that anger?
I admittedly have, not always dealt with it in the best way. I am somebody that by my nature, it's very easy for me to turn hurt and grief into anger, right? It's a simple way to navigate your emotions sometimes when you don't have any other way to do it. And that can be useful. I can put it into a physical aggression and working out and letting that anger work through my body physically. But you cannot let it sit and fester within you. It's so hard to not feel like just angry at the world that why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to them? And then one thing I'd like to mention that I don't see brought up enough is the guilt. And the guilt allows more anger to creep in towards yourself. And then when you're mad at yourself and you're mad at the world and you just become one giant ball of anger.
Yeah. Wow.
It's hard to deal with it. It's hard to still want to be here when that's all you're feeling. So
A lot of times we're not taught how to manage our grief, right? Like, I mean, as kid, like
no,
have a
you're not
framework.
taught, and it's something that's very difficult, honestly, to teach. That's one of the things is every scenario is unique. Every scenario is different. And so even when you experience a very similar thing, I lost my daughter. If I meet someone else who has lost a 4-year-old daughter, I don't know exactly what they're going through. I don't know exactly how it affects them. I don't know how it affects their family dynamic, their children, all of these things. So I don't know. It is such a personal thing. And that's why it's so important to, when you are supporting someone who is grieving with extreme loss, is to simply be there and to say, I'm here. You want to talk? You don't want to talk? You want me to sit with you? Great. That's the only thing you can do, because it is such a personal thing. And of course, we can go over the steps and talk about it, and it helps somewhat. But when you are in the depths of that grief and the lowest possible form of yourself, I mean, you literally feel like an animal when you are that bad off, you know, when you witness or you experience losing a child or something. You want to talk about the most animalistic noises that come out of your body. You are stripped away to a base level, primal, instinctual animal. And you are going to want to lash out at the world that has taken away the highlight of your life from you. So it is extremely difficult to deal with. However, that depth is crucial to experience it. And sometimes we have to experience it in doses, you know, to wallow in the grief for a time and then cut it off because it can be too much. But by allowing yourself to feel that grief, you go through it, and you're never going to leave it behind. The grief is always going to be with you. But when you immerse yourself into it and you become intimately aware of that grief and how it affects you, it allows you to get through the other side, to see what's possible on the other side. And that's something else, is you actually get a gift from that. And that's what I mentioned to you, Nick, is it is a horrible, horrible experience. It's a curse, and it is a blessing for the things that it can bring into your life, as long as you are willing to do the work to get through to the other side, to see the sun on the other side of it.
Are you okay hanging here for a little bit?
100%.
Yeah. Because you hit on something really vital here. You know, there's a thing called titration when it comes to grief. Titration is introducing healing in small degrees. So in chemistry, titration is introducing a small amount of chemical to see how it reacts to the other chemicals. Because if you throw all of it in all at once, it'll blow everything up, and then you got a real issue. And same with grief. If you try and heal it all at once, it's too much. So they talk about titrating your grief, which is to introduce it or to heal it in small degrees, you know, as much as you can handle, just to see how you handle it. And there's no wrong in this. I think of, you know, there's this stoicism when it comes to grief that people say, just get over. Why are you still grieving? That was 10 years ago. Well, how are you still dealing with this? This was so long ago. Get over it. Get over yourself. And the thing is like, what I've learned from grief is that you don't get over grief. You don't move on. You move forward, but you don't move on from somebody. If you love somebody, you truly were attached and bonded to them, there's no getting over it. There's no moving on from it.
The grief is attached to you as much as their relationship was attached to you when they were alive. It doesn't go away.
So with that, you know, Queen Elizabeth said that grief is the cost of love. Mm-hmm. So when you love somebody deeply, and we all risk it, you know, whether it's relationship or a career or an ideal or family, we attach and bond to things, and it's human nature. It's almost like this quantum entanglement. We entangle ourselves with people, and it's part of the beauty of love is that we enmesh ourselves with someone, something. And then when that gets shattered and torn apart, the brain tries to reconcile it and tries to find that pathway that it's always gone down. There's a poem that I wrote about this, is just, we've gone down this path so many times. We know how to find it. It's within our time and space. And then all of a sudden it's gone and we don't have access to it anymore. And we've all experienced something like this. Man, I'm feeling the emotion, right, already of this.
You know, going back to the titration, it was, you know, like, you have to be okay and you have to accept your own version of going through this. So it was a full 2 years before I could look at a picture of my daughter. Like, I just couldn't. I wanted to look at pictures of my daughter and reminisce, but my God, the amount of destruction it did to me, and it was awful. And so it was one of those things that had to be introduced a little bit at a time, face it a little bit at a time. And I am fortunate in a way that, you know, my daughter passed unexpectedly, took 2 weeks off. I had to go back to work, got a family to feed. And I remember 2 weeks later, I was doing some custom tile in a shower and just being in a homeowner's home and just breaking down and silently sobbing while trying to do this work, and just allowing myself 30 seconds to just quietly bawl my eyes out, because I had employees getting stuff out of the truck, and you wipe away those tears. And okay, I felt fortunate that I was forced to be in a situation, whereas if I could just be at home and wallow in it, I don't know if I'd be here today. I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah.
But I had to be at work, and I had to force myself to take it in doses, to have an anxiety attack, a panic attack, a meltdown. But I've got a job to do. I've got a son to feed. I have to take care of business. And, while that is a burden that I have to have, it's a blessing that I had that. It's a blessing that
Truly.
I had something to force me to take that in doses, that pain in doses. And especially that time in my career, I was working a lot of hours. And so I could only allow it to come in doses, which was probably saved me. It probably saved me, because when you don't want to be here, but you've got another child, you've got other people beyond yourself, that sense of duty, be the one thing that saves you. And like we said, everybody experiences loss. We all experience it differently. And the beautiful thing is God put us here with all the tools that we need, right? Put us here with all the food that we need to nourish our bodies. And he also put us here with these experiences we have to grow our spirits, our minds. And they're sometimes terrible experiences, but then we overcome these experiences and we actually get the benefit on the other side, get to talk to people like you, get to talk to other wonderful people, get to share this experience. That's what this life is. We all signed up to be part of this amazing experience of life. And the cost of life is death. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
And the cost of loving someone, as you said, is someone's going to die before you, and you're going to experience that loss.
Yeah.
And, we're not mourning them necessarily. They're on to some other place. The pain is no longer here. They're not experiencing this. So we're mourning ourselves. We're mourning the feeling that I go through because I'm missing that person, because they're no longer a part of my life. I feel very confident that, everything's okay with them. So I'm not mourning what they're going through now. I'm mourning what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And, that's a hard thing in itself, because then you feel the guilt and the selfishness and everything else. So it's a very, very complex. It's one of the most complex things we can ever navigate through our emotions, our spirits, and our minds.
Well, there's a couple of things here. One thing is, when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did her work, she didn't heal anything. She interviewed all these people and found out there were common themes with them, common languages that were used. And it wasn't that everybody went through all 5 of those things: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. It's not like they all went through all 5 of those. But she gave a language to what they were experiencing. And in giving them language to it, it actually created healing, because when we can express things, Edith Eger talks about depression and expression being the opposite of depression. And they're finding in research now that when you can express things and talk about these and put language to them, you can actually start to heal them. And so when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross put language to what people were experiencing, they started to heal. right? When we look at our 12 journeys framework, we're not healing anything. The body knows how to heal. The soul knows how to heal. All we're doing is providing a framework and a language to what you're experiencing as a human being. So grief is one of those. The Latin word gravare, right? Heaviness or weightiness, to grieve, that's exactly what it feels like. Anger is heavy. Anxiety is heavy. Depression is heavy. Grief is heavy. And when you don't have language for it, it's even worse because you're feeling all this stuff and you can't even speak it. So you can't even talk about it.
That is such a great point, because we aren't taught that. And especially traditionally, you know, I'm a guy, I was born in 77. I grew up in a family of construction workers. You already are not taught how to express your emotions, how to express your feelings, you know?
Like hobbled right from the start.
Right, exactly. You know, we're handcuffed from the beginning. You know, our method of expression is, you know, beating the heck out of each other.
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't do that, or you're gonna get hit. You know, that's
rub some dirt in it. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
We're already starting from, you know, negative space with already not being able to navigate or express just the most basic emotions. You know, how to navigate just interpersonal relations and how to discuss basic things. So then when you have something as profound as severe loss, trauma, tragedy, absolutely, that's a great point.
It's, you know, what we strive to do in our 12 journeys framework is to not only give language to these things, but to have tools that go into each of these journeys. Because when we look at the 12 journeys, this isn't a linear path. It's not like, oh, you go from non-consciousness to awareness to grief. Nobody does. We are so non-linear, but we try and think linearly. We think, oh, I'm going to go in a progression. I'm going to be okay. But sometimes you're so stuck in grief that you can't leave legacy because you're over here working on grief. And then you navigate grief and you're over here working on vision, right? So you bounce around, you work in combination with things. But what we really want to establish here, especially when it comes to grief, is how valuable it is to express these sensations that our bodies produce in relation to the world that we're experiencing. We're out here having these events. And like you said, no two people in the beginning, no two people see the world the same way. No two people experience grief the same way. And so when we can recognize that we have perceptions and cultural values and ethics and morals and beliefs and perceptions that affect our way of seeing the world, and every one of us has a unique fingerprint when it comes to that. And then we go out there and we try and navigate grief from that point of view. Like, it's essential that we know who's showing up to live our lives, right? And how that can impact things.
Well, life is cumulative. So because something happened in my past doesn't mean it only exists in my past. It's still here. It's still here. So it is a part of me. It's as much a part of me as my hand, you know? So that grief is a part of me.
Yeah.
And there are times when, you know, hey, there are times when my back hurts and there are times when it doesn't. Hey, there's times when my grief hurts and there's times when it doesn't.
I like that.
And when I talked about the gifts that come of it, when you have gone through the most darkest depths of your existence, when you have experienced the most guttural, basal level pain, you can experience joy and happiness in an unimaginable way that you could not imagine before. So I have been down so far into such depths, I have had a sunrise cup of coffee that was one of the most amazing experiences in my life. That moment, that simple little moment, felt so profound because in that moment I was 100% present and I was 100% feeling it. And it was the complete opposite of the depths of pain and of loss, of grief and trauma. So you have this gift of being able to experience it. It doesn't mean that the grief is gone. It doesn't mean that I've put that behind me. It means that contrast has allowed me to see this wonderful experience. So if this cup of coffee on a sunshine is wonderful, Think about the things like I went hiking in Moab with my son this fall, and waking up and watch the sunrise over the red rocks and seeing him grow into this strong, healthy young man. It's the greatest feeling in the world. It is beyond the greatest feeling in the world. It's indescribable, but the depths of that joy are made possible by the depths of pain that I felt. And I'm still going to experience that pain. I'm still going to, maybe tonight, maybe a week from now, I may think about my daughter. I may think about my wife. I may think about friends I've lost or what have you. And I may feel really down and really low. And the thing is I'm so familiar with that now, and I'm so comfortable. It's a painful place, but it's almost like, when we work out, you push yourself into uncomfortable boundaries. Well, you do it to the point where it becomes a familiar friend. You run to the point of beyond exhaustion. You lift that weight beyond, so you can't lift anymore. And it's an uncomfortable feeling, but it's a familiar friend. You're familiar with it. And it's kind of like that with the grief. It's doesn't feel good, but it's a familiar companion, and you know how to navigate it now. And you know almost how deep to go into it before you say, okay, that's enough. I'm going to stop reminiscing now. Time for me to go do something else. Titration over.
Dude, you are
over.
You are nailing like the value of these heavier emotions. Anxiety. I saw a video the other day, and I'll share. Well, I'm going to share a quote, and then I'm going to come back to this. Okay. So first off, Debbie Roth, who was on our show, her mom was murdered. And Debbie talked about navigating her grief, which was intense. She shared a quote with me by Rumi that says, "Joy is concealed in grief." Right. And when you look at the heavier emotions, now tying this in, that they're not as bad as people have been taught to think, right? Grief conceals joy. Depression conceals opportunity. Anxiety conceals a profound awareness of your environment, right? The CIA actually looks for people with anxiety because they're already paranoid and they're hyper aware of their environment. They have a superpower, but nobody looks at anxiety as a superpower. Depression allows you to pull back from what's happening and resign from it and really reflect on it and re-engage in a new, more powerful way if you'll use it that way. Grief allows you to experience joy in ways you've never experienced before. Like, these things are so powerful that we look at them as negatives, but these things are almost like the refiner's fire, right? They pull you in and they clear you out so that you can start to step up and see the world freshly, right? The one thing that you hit on is you have times where you think about it. There's a story of a young lady who was in the concentration camps in North Korea, and she was in survival state constantly throughout her life. She got free. She came to America. She said there was nothing harder in her life than having time to think, right? She said she could handle the camps. She couldn't handle the thinking.
If you look at some of the most sheltered and, quote unquote, privileged people in this world, some of these people that don't experience a lot of hardship in their life, these are some of the least happy people on the planet. Like, you go around to third world countries, the people that are working extremely hard, and you find extremely happy people. Man, not if they're being oppressed, not if they're being, starved, but as long as they have freedom of expression and enough food to eat, most of these people are quite happy, and they've experienced, some bad things in life. And some people that, like, wow, you've had a pretty good life, and they're miserable. And I honestly think that there's a huge component to that because they haven't had the depth of experience to feel those emotions and see the contrast. Contrast is everything in life. Contrast makes everything. Would the sunshine be special if we never had night? No. Would the moon be special if it was out all the time? No. It's one of those things where you cannot maintain. You can maintain a state of contentment, maintain a state of peace, But I don't think you can maintain a state of joy, because if that's your baseline, it's no longer joy. And people need to remember that. We have to have that contrast. And you are 100% right, talking about how if we use those tools, like, boy, I've been through some really, really depressing times in my life when I have been down, 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 and scraping through onto the other side to say, okay, I have been into that depth, and coming out on the other side, though, it does allow you to say, I don't want to be in that place anymore. I don't want to experience that again. How, if you can get to the stage of reflection about that experience and about that feeling, it can, like you said, you come out of it way more powerful. It's like a superhero origin story, basically.
Yeah, right.
What you're describing, you go through this awful, awful traumatic experience to the point that you don't think you're going to survive. But if you do survive, and if you do it in a constructive way, you come out of it so strong, so capable, and so powerful. And it leaves you with a confidence to navigate the world, because you know that I've been through this, and I've been through this again, and I've been through this, and I'm still here. So I'm here to the end.
I love that. When you're on the show alone, you had plenty of time to think, I would imagine. And the environment that you were in on that show, and whoever hasn't seen that, go back and watch Jordon and watch his mindset as you go through this. Like, watch his mindset as you watch Alone. And
Season
it's
8,
so
so you don't have to
incredible.
watch like 1 through 7. You could go just straight to season 8.
Yeah, season 8. There we go. But you kept yourself busy, but you're out there with yourself. There's nobody there. There's nobody to talk to you, to distract you. It's you and your thoughts, and that's it. And I'd love for you to share, if you would, what you experienced inside of that, of going on that show and being out there in that environment where you're there with you. Can you do that for us? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. When you are stuck in your head, now it's a fairly familiar place for me. I do tend to spend a lot of time alone in my head. And, when my first wife passed away, after that, I lived alone in a cabin in the woods. And so I had all of that alone time to deal with that. But nothing can prepare you for the new batch of thoughts that are going to creep up into your mind when you are alone like that. So it's always going to be an exercise and always going to be a struggle, because you may think that you have addressed all of these things when you have spent previous alone time, but then you get out there and a whole new batch of things, and it's like, wow, I haven't spent 19 days not talking to a whole other being like this, especially after having kids, and that changes your entire dynamic. So, of course, being a parent, your thoughts are on them a lot, but it was not just thinking about my daughter, but also thinking about my son. And it really makes you question what you're doing in life. It makes you question what the plan is, what's next. It was hard for me going on the show and experiencing that, because I thought I was prepared for that. However, when you are, a father and a business owner and a husband and all that kind of stuff, you have these obligations. So I would think that, going out there, like, I would be thinking about the passing of my daughter, because it was, less than 2 years past that. Hey, Mark. And so you'd think it would be about that, but you get out there, and then I'm doing the show, and pretty soon I'm thinking about my son and about time away from my son, and then feeling the guilt because I was working so much. I already had that guilt that I didn't spend enough time with my daughter before she passed. And now here I am competing on the show away from my family. Hi, Amber. And, I'm away from my family and I'm starting to feel selfish because of that. That starts bringing back not just the grief of the loss of my daughter, but that familiar guilt of I worked too much when she was little. I didn't spend enough time with her before I lost her. So now here I am out in the woods doing this show. And now it feels like I'm doing something for me. And
everybody's fighting over Jordon Bell.
Yeah,
I get it.
My Jordon Bell.
And so then, thinking about what my duties are as a father. And that was actually a very difficult thing to deal with, because I was thinking, you know what, I should be out here with my son right now. I should be, at this stage of the competition, I was not feeling confident in how things were going. And I'm just thinking that I'm not serving my son the best. Now, right or wrong, that's what's going on in my head when you're by yourself all day.
Right. Man, the guilt is probably one of those things that people don't talk about enough. Susan Anderson and her work on the abandonment cycle, when people get abandoned, internalization is one of the letters in there, is internalizing. We internalize it. We really start to reflect on ourselves and guilt ourselves and shame ourselves over what happened. It was our fault. I did this. Look what I'm doing. Look how I'm showing up, which I think on one hand can be really healthy, but it could be something that causes rumination. And, reflection beyond healing is probably more along the lines of rumination, right? Where you're really just stuck in that loop. So to recognize that you may go through some guilt as you grieve, seems to normalize it in a way that it would be normal that you're going to internalize or guilt yourself over what you're experiencing as part of the healing process. I think and on one hand, it causes you to really reflect on if you want to continue down the same path that you're currently on, which to me ties into depression. Because when you reflect on depression allows you to pull back your energy and reflect on it and see reality exactly as it is. That's the beauty of depression, is you see reality not through your delusions. This is why comedians are so damn funny, is because they speak the truth as it is. And comedians are some of the most depressed people in the world. Mm-hmm. They're hilarious, right?
Absolutely.
Because they speak reality as it is. And that reflection is part of the healing process, because you got to decide, am I going to continue doing what I'm doing, or am I going to change it? Right. And I think this is the opportunity that people miss out on, is when they get into that rumination and that guilt and that internalization, instead of doing something about it, a lot of people numb out to it. So they'll get busy with work. They'll get their addictions going. They'll do some compulsive or impulsive behavior to not feel the the discomfort of that. Can you speak to that?
The time after I lost my first wife is a perfect example of all of this, of every aspect of it, really. So it was wintertime, and I was running my business in Alaska, a construction business in Alaska, and I typically worked about 9 months out of the year. It was a seasonal thing, and I usually did okay. And that year, I didn't do so great. And my wife at the time, she hadn't worked. I supported us. And she said, well, maybe I should go back to work this winter. Things weren't great this year. I said, yeah, maybe that'll help. Go back to work this winter. So she went back to work. And, January 26, 2006, she never came home from work because she was in a car accident. And so how can I not think about, well, if I'd made more money this year, she wouldn't have gone back to work. Well, if I had bought her a better car, she might have survived it if she had side curtain airbags. All of these things. The last phone conversation I had with her, she was going to head home. Do you need anything from the grocery store? I was irritated. I was like, no, I don't need anything. I already told you. Boom, that was it. Last time I talked to her. That is a massive amount of guilt to handle on top of the loss. And it was, oh man, I didn't have a great support structure as far as like family. You know, I was living in Alaska. All my family was the other side of the country. I hadn't seen a lot of my family in 8 or 9 years. I had a couple of friends that did what they could, but you know, no 28, 29-year-old guy is really equipped to help his buddy out who just lost his wife that he's been with for 7 years. Nobody's really. The best thing that, you know, my friends need to do is, hey, let's go into the gym. Hey, let's go snowboarding. But that guilt and being alone with it, you know, we lived in this cabin together in the woods, this tiny cabin that I built. We lived in this cabin, and it got to the point where I couldn't sleep there. I just started sleeping in my car. So I spent probably 5 months living out of my car. I would, you know, go to my job sites, go back to my cabin, and then drive up into the mountains and park in my car and sleep because I couldn't handle being there. I didn't want to be there. And it got to the point where I just didn't want to be alive. It was awful. And, you know, the way I am is, well, I can't end it myself, but if I happen to be in a situation where I'm no longer here, so be it.
The risk taking, right?
And so, yeah, so I started, you know, snowboarding, late spring avalanche territory. I'm going to go snowboard it. It's great. And, you know, that's how I got caught up in a giant avalanche that wiped 2,500 feet down the mountain. And, you know, I wish I could say that while it was happening, you know, you have all these thoughts, but that doesn't really happen. You know, your body's in this survival mode as you're getting knocked down the mountain. But I got carried down this giant avalanche, wet, heavy spring snow that just crushes people when it collapses over them. And it swept me down the mountain to the very front of it. And it literally pushed me up onto my snowboard, standing up with a giant mass of snow behind me, a giant wall of snow. And it just spit me out and said, not today.
Holy cow.
And I mean, it was mind blowing to see that and to experience it. And I had, you know, some bad times as far as doing some really dumb stuff with drinking and driving and things like that, and sending my car off the road and various things. And every time it was like, you're not even going to get a scratch on you. You can't. You are not allowed to go. And after a few months of some pretty intense situations, you know, I could only come to the conclusion that you don't get to check out. It's not your time. Supposed to be here. And when you finally surrender to that and say, I'm here. I'm here to experience it all. I'm here to experience this pain, to make it through to the other side. But I needed that. I needed that assurance from above. Like, nope, it's not your time. You're not allowed to go. Not your time. And when you finally embrace that, then that's when you awaken that superpower we were talking about, right? Because it's not my time. I'll go when it's my time. But until that time, I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to say, bring it on. Bring me all the pain, all the joy, all the friends, all the enemies, everything. I'm here to experience this life in all of its glory, in all of its pain, in all of its pleasure. I'm here. Bring it on. I have surrendered into it. And only by doing that can you make it through to the other side to feel those joys that are as deep as that desire to leave this earth.
That facing it, right? That power. Ryan, did you have a thought? Don't let me interrupt you.
No, you're good. I just quick. I was just listening to Jordan and I could see the reminiscing, both of us, in our, it's hard as he's talking not to dive back
Yeah.
into relation into your own life and what you've gone through. And ooh, and I do this because I'm a big ball baby. But I'm just glad that the mountains spit you out.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
Mm. Yeah, it's we have friends that, similar situations, where you're not allowed to leave. That things that are impossible happened to keep them
Can't
around.
quit you, Jordan. Don't you
Yeah.
leave.
But this idea that we're here to learn something, and until we learn it, we got to go through that lesson again and again. We've all been through that. We have my analogy is like, before we came here, potentially we had this big old shopping cart and we're going down the aisles and we're like, oh grief, that sounds good. And we start unloading the shelves into our shopping cart. And then we get here and we're like, fuck, somebody should have declined my credit card.
Right.
Yeah.
That's I've heard it called the soul contract.
You buy that? Right.
I like, man, my eyes were huge when I was up there pulling up.
Right.
It was like, bring me all that
dude.
paint, bring me all that stuff. And then when you're here,
it's like the Nickelodeon, like clear out the shopping cart. You're on that contest to clear out the shopping carts and get as many things as you can in your cart before the bell rings or whatever.
Exactly.
Right.
But now that I'm here,
yeah,
and today when I'm, not in the depths of depression, I'm so happy for it because I would so much rather have a full life than a bland life. And a life devoid of highs and lows. This is what it's all about, is experiencing all of that stuff.
Well, this is legacy, right? So if we really tie this in, as a capstone to this, legacy it means a gift by will. It's from the Latin legatia, which means a gift by will. And, we talked to Steve Chandler, who was on the show, another powerful show. And he talked about legacy. You don't leave a legacy when you die. It's like, oh, I'll wait till I die and then I'll leave a gift with the world. Right. And he says, leave your legacy while you're living. It's a living legacy. And, for me lately, I've been binge watching these near-death experiences, and there's this common theme. And I just, I've gone down this rabbit hole with it. And one of the themes is the ripple. Many of them talk about throwing a stone in the pond or in the water, and there's a ripple that goes out. And whether it's one person or a ton of people, there's a positive ripple that gets rippled out from our life. And our life is the greatest testament of who, what's possible. And that ripple goes out, and whether it impacts one person, you don't see beyond that. So your story today might ripple and impact one person. That's a gift to them. And we have no idea that could go out and that could impact the entire world because you showed up today and you said, I'm going to make a positive impact with the life that I've been given. And that's what we try to do here with the 12 journeys and Wake Up with Giants TV and the Giants and the Smalls and the upcoming Tortoise's Hair, is to create a positive ripple in at least one person. Right. Mm-hmm. And then that becomes legacy, right?
And what you said, living legacies, I try to actualize that every day with raising my son. One of the things that I know from my personal experience, and we talked about this, growing up a guy in a guy's family, youngest of 5 construction workers, is we aren't given these tools of expression, and we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about a lot. I had to learn a lot through observation and osmosis. And I want more for my son than that. And so I try to explain everything. I try to bring him out into the world and experience everything. And like I tell him, I want him to be as comfortable in the backwoods and the boardroom. We go to events and dress up in a suit and tie and, also go hiking in the middle of nowhere so that he has these experiences and I can explain what I know and at least give him my head start. We all stand on the shoulders of those before us. Well, let's boost up the next generation. Well, one of the impacts of having a now 13-year-old son and trying to be cognizant of teaching him not just physical things, but, emotional and spiritual things. But now I see the importance of it, and I spend more time mentoring young guys that I have as employees. I see the value in spending time talking to them about things and letting them share. So, talk about how things are going on and issues that they're having in their family and ways that I can kind of help. And I admittedly in my younger days had a much more selfish approach. For one, I didn't have the confidence that, hey, nothing that I have of knowledge is of any value but to anyone else. But also just not, the innate desire to help other people. But, I'm at the age now where unfortunately I got less years ahead of me than behind me. So it's time to start imparting some of the knowledge that I've learned to other people, even if it helps them 1% on their journey. And the sad part is because the pain and the experience is necessary to a full life, I know that other people, and I know that especially my son, is going to deal with pain, and he's going to have to deal with it. And as a father, you want to protect them from everything. It's like, I don't want you to feel any pain. I don't want you to feel any sorrow or any grief. But at the same time, I know he's going to have to experience that, and he's going to have to experience it to have a full life. So the best thing I can do is, like you said, give him the tools to experience it and to express it in a healthy way, so that when he does come across those pains and those traumas in life, he knows how to deal with it and come out of it an even stronger man.
Yeah. I just had a visual while you're talking about that legacy is, the rough stones make the best splashes, and the smooth stones we put in our pockets so they don't make any splash, and so everybody's like, well, I want to be perfect before I go out and make an impact. And that's not how it works. It's like, you go out and you impact where you're at as a rough stone. It's like, go out just like you are. We don't need you all polished up. Those are for skipping.
That's something I've had to do with my entire life, because I have a tendency to be OCD. I'm ADD and OCD. Yeah. So it's like I absolutely don't get anything done perfectly. It's nothing is ever good enough. It makes me a fantastic carpenter and a terrible businessman, because I'm so OCD and I want perfect. Well, I believe it was Voltaire who said that the enemy of the perfect, or the enemy of the good, is the perfect, because we spend so much time trying to strive for this perfection, we achieve nothing instead of achieving a whole bunch of good things.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like we have to go out with incomplete data, with incomplete experience, with an imperfect self, and say, here's what I do know. Here's what I can help you with. I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. We're all fallible. We're not God. This is what I've got to offer. And hopefully it helps. But you're right. It's not going to help if we don't share it all. If we wait until we are this perfect being, well, it's never going to happen, because you're going to die before that ever happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you, as we wrap up here, that went by really fast. A little too fast. Yeah.
Too fast.
If there was we always ask, if there was a question you wish somebody would ask you, and sometimes there's no question that comes up. Sometimes there's just a thought that comes up of something you'd want to share. And so either way works. But if there was a question you'd want to be asked, what would that question be? And if there's no question, what thought comes up when you hear that?
I guess the question would be the question that should be universal for everyone is what do you want from this life? Like, what are you hoping to get from this life? Because I think it is very profound in that we talk about business strategies. We talk about, mapping out ways to learn things or whatever. But we never talk about what's your goal in life.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about a job or a relationship, but everything. It's a deeper question. It's as deep as who are you, right? And that goes beyond your occupation, your parental status, your marital status, anything like that. Who are you? Well, what do you really want from life? And you can't fully get what you want out of life if you don't ask yourself that question. What do you want? And I've touched on that. For me is I want to experience it all. I want the depths of experience. I don't know, I don't know exactly what's on the other side. We all go off from faith. I don't know what's on the other side, but I know that right here, right now is a gift. That's what I know for sure. I know that this is a gift, and I'm not going to squander this gift for anything. I'm going to embrace it. It's as far as I know, it's the greatest gift we get. I don't know what's on the other side. Maybe we got better gifts, but right now, this is what I got.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to let this, I'm not going to let this gift horse in the mouth. Like this is life. I've been given it with all of its glory and all of its pain and everything in between.
Yeah.
And what do I want from it? I want to experience it. And the crazy part about that is you don't even know what that entails until you experience it. You don't know what the experiences of life are until you're in the middle of it. So I think you're right. We filled that shopping cart full.
Yeah.
Not knowing, right? We saw the packages. They looked cool.
I was just thinking, if you are going to look the gift horse in the mouth, you'd probably want Mark Willis on your side because he knows what he's looking for.
He knows what he's looking at. He'd take care of a gap like that.
Yeah, he can take care of that gap.
Us gappy dudes.
This is just an exploration. It's just a tip of the iceberg. Jordon, we've done 250 plus interviews like this, and we've had every topic you can imagine through the Wake Up with Giants. I feel blessed that I get to sit here and learn from people like you. That Mark,
not what I heard.
Right as we go into like the loving,
right.
acknowledgments.
The beauty of it is I get to sit here and learn from some profound minds, like yours that have been through things I haven't experienced, not in the degree that you have. It doesn't diminish my own experience, but it enhances the journey to know that there are people like you that are going through things like this that are willing to impart and share some of the wisdom that you've gained along your own journey. Because, man, every one of us is human, which is weird, right? We're all human, which means we come with a whole set of crazy ways of being. We're holistic in nature, going all the way to a soul level. And we have a chance to really determine who we want to be in this life, and regardless of your belief system, that doesn't matter. Whether you believe in a God or you're atheistic, it doesn't matter. What matters is how you see yourself and who you think you are and how that impacts the world around you. And if you even want to do that, right? It's totally up to us to even not do anything. Right. And
exactly.
So I'd wonder, as we wrap up here, I'd love to hear from you and Ryan both is, what message do you want to give to the person on the other side of this screen? These are real people here watching this show, and if you could share one message to that person that's sitting across from us on that screen, what would you want to say as a wrap up here?
For me, it's go experience life. When someone says, "Hey, do you want to?" and it's, something that maybe you hadn't considered doing, but it's going to be an experience, do it. Experience this life. As far as I know, we only get one go around, so you might as well make it a worthy one. Experience that life share those experiences with other people, and talk with them, impart your knowledge and gain their knowledge.
I love it. Ryan, how about you? What thoughts are you having as you hear all this?
God, I mean, so many. My relationship with Jordon Bell is miraculous in and of itself. It's a story that's tied into our story, Nick. That's deep. That shows that the universe, God, loves me, is watching out for me too. Um, the people are placed in your pathway. Um, that's Richard Paul Evans and a Paul Cardall led to a Jordan Bell and a Mark Willis, some of the greatest human beings that I know. And Nick, you're right in that mix because of like the things that we've done together. All of these things have happened because of your ripple, Nick. You talked about the ripple, and last night I watched Pocahontas with my boys. I had started watching it the other day with Matt, who's 11, and at school they were doing a project all about John Smith and Jamestown and all that stuff, and I was like, let's watch Pocahontas naturally. And there he looks at me and he's like, whatever, Dad. And then he starts telling me about the different historical, like this isn't as historically, accurate and all these things. But we watched it, right? And Mother Willow drops a rock into the, into the pond and talks about the ripple and how it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes. Um, Jordan, I'm so grateful for your ripple effect. Pocahontas, yes. Because it has absolutely blessed my life. More than 1%, like you talked about, you hope for 1%. You're kind of like the whole milk of positive effect.
The non-watered down version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You are the gift, Jordan. You have impacted um, my life more than you'll ever know. When we see each other, it's only once or twice a year, and when we met, we didn't know each other from Adam. Literally, Jordan had been on Paul Cardall's podcast and was like, "Who is this guy?" And Paul turns around and invites him to Wyoming for a men's retreat, and he almost didn't come, but he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna experience life and whatever." It's a bunch of dudes out in the woods that I have no idea who they are. He's like, "I don't know if I'm gonna get unalived or if this is gonna be the greatest experience of my life." And I'm so glad that you made that commitment. You hopped on that plane and you came because it was like seeing my brother. The bond and the fellowship and the friendship has been, it's perfect, man. I wish you were closer. I wish we could see each other more often. You might not, because we like to eat and drink and be merry a little bit, but um, it's impacted my world. I just wanted to let you know that it's impacted my world more than you'll ever know. And so those types of friends, those types of people in your life, if you're missing that, go find a Jordan Bell, go find a Nick Smith, go find a Mark Willis, go find a Paul Cardall, somebody that no matter what you're going through is there, loves you unconditionally. There's I don't know if there's anything, short of, well, there's probably a few things, but short of causing harm to other people, I think that Jordan Bell would wrap his arm around me and give me a hug and tell me it's okay and hey, let's work through this. And yeah, there is a serious romance with some of these guys.
Yeah.
They're incredible men that are unpolished and polished at the same time, and they make a huge splash. Um, Sometimes in the smallest, simplest ways. So, anyway,
I love it.
Love you,
And
brother.
I just want to touch on that real briefly. When I say go out there and experience life, it was kind of on a whim thing that I did the Alone show. And after being on the show, there was a lot of aspects of it that caused me a lot of headache and heartache for being on the show. And there was some regret even having done it. And yet I met Paul and then Ryan, and through that, and after that, I was like, that's why I went on the show. Some of these experiences, it wasn't to be on the show. It wasn't, that's part of it. But my God, had I not met Paul and then Ryan and then you, Nick, like Ryan, you've been life-changing to me. I mean, you're talking about someone who has never experienced softness or care or just friendship out of pure friendship. And when I met Paul and then I met you guys, and for the first time in my life, I was like, there's good people out there. There are people out there who are nice for no other reason than just to be nice and give it. And you might think that depending on your upbringing, well, that's pretty unprofound. But I'm sorry, as a middle-aged man growing up the way I've grown up and been in the places that I've been, that was huge. That was profound to meet people like you. Like Ryan is the most giving, self-sacrificing person I have met for no reason than just to give and to be a good friend. And it has been so life-changing for me. So it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone on the show and then done Paul's podcast and then said, sure, I'll fly across the country and hang out with a bunch of people I've never met before. Like, I don't do this. I don't hang out. I typically don't have friends. I'm very much a loner. I don't really interact with people a whole lot outside of work and family. And discovering people like you, my God, it has been so profound. So that's why I say go out and experience life, because when you say to go find a Jordan or a Mark or a Paul or Nick, sometimes that happens through what we would consider a freak occurrence.
Yeah.
But it's only going to happen if you go out there and experience life, every moment of it.
It's beautiful. Guys, this has been amazing. This is and there's so much more to come. Like it's beautiful. What I love about these shows is that they make real impact. They make impact over here, but I know for you as the viewer, as you're watching this, that there's something in this that keeps you coming back, because we have the same people showing up every week. I'd love to hear, if you guys are willing to do this in the comments after the show, in one sentence or maybe a couple of sentences, what this show does for you and how it impacts you, because it's great to get up here and do a show, but what really matters is how it impacts you. How did this conversation today impact you? What did it do? What did it open up in you? Because that's the greatest takeaway, is that realization that there's something I learned today that I needed, And so that also helps us to share with others. This is why you might want to come watch Wake Up with Giants TV with a couple of dudes who are totally unprofessional, showing up in sweatshirts and all this stuff with bad lighting and all the things. It's like we're not here to put on a show. We're here to really grow and learn. And so if you could share with us why this show is impactful for you, that helps us to find more people like you that could use this message. So just, we love you. Like, I don't think you have any idea, Joni, Hugh, Karina, Ray. Yeah. Lori, like, we see all you guys and you keep showing up and you keep supporting us. And we're just deeply grateful for it. And so keep doing that. If you know somebody that would benefit from today's show, share this show with them and tell them why. Like, you got to watch this, and here's why you should watch it, in 1 to 2 sentences. and then that'll create some impact over there. That's part of the ripple. So help us ripple out and make a positive change in the world. Our goal, which is so grandiose, it's almost narcissistic in nature, which it's not, I'll tell you, is to impact 100 million lives globally. We believe we can actually do it. How we're going to do it, I have no clue. No clue. But as a possibility, I think it's possible. It's only like 0.02% of the world population is what we're looking to impact.
Set the intention.
Yep. So if you can help us do that, that would be beautiful. Jordon, you're just a beautiful human being. Thank you for being on with us. As OCD and ADD as you are, like you're our kind of people.
I appreciate it. I'm an odd balance for sure.
Yeah. So for those that are watching, thank you as always for being here. As we always say, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing what you need to be doing. Just start trusting it. You're being guided. You know, you have a unique fingerprint that nobody else is going to have. All we're trying to provide is some languaging to what you're experiencing so that you can get back to your power. That's what we want as giants. So we just absolutely love you. Thank you for being a part of this. Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap up?
Just thank you very much for having me on here, and I love you guys.
Thank you, man.
Jordon, I'll see you in August, brother.
Hopefully sooner, man. That's too far.
I know, that's a long time away.
But if not, I'll see you then.
Definitely then.
Get a room, guys. No, just kidding. All right, guys, go make it a giant day. We will see you in the next episode.
Love you too.